JB here. Hope everybody's doing outstanding. Monday, June 17th, 2024. The last 2 weeks of the first half. We have 2 weeks left in June. That puts an end to the second quarter. And then we get to the back half here. Should be interesting. Markets last week. S&P's up, I believe, 7 weeks. S&P was up nearly 1.6% last week. And that was despite Friday's gap lower at the open, then we were able to reverse and close pretty much flat on the day. It's going to be an interesting week. This week, kind of quiet. Earnings are winding down. There's not many whatsoever. There's a couple at the end of the week, JBL, a few others. Then we have the retail sales number comes out tomorrow, a 0.3% estimate. So probably want to see that in line. If it comes in weaker than expected, this whole, you start hearing these rumblings that the economy is slowing down, and then you'll probably start hearing that R word again, the recession, right? Which we've heard so many times over the last year and a half or so as the Fed was raising rates, which never came to fruition. And then we also, there's Fed speak this week. So the favorite Fed speaker, Neil Kashkari, I guess how you pronounce it, from Minneapolis. That's the one that pretty much, I wouldn't say single-handedly, but a couple months ago, there was a whole slew of Fed speakers, and a lot of them were hawkish. Some started saying no rate cuts whatsoever for the year, and that kind of spooked markets because at the time, most folks, or the probability of 3 rate cuts was pretty high. But that has come back down after some of the stronger than expected data, and then finally CPI data coming out this past week, cooler than expected, kind of sets the tone or the stage for the Fed to cut rates starting September. I think there's a 60% probability now that that's going to happen. At least that's what the market's pricing in, and go from there. Some concern, I wouldn't say concern, but well, first on the SPY, 545 or so, that looks like probably some strong resistance if we somehow get up to there this week. And then on the flip side, Friday's low 539. Those are the areas I'm looking at as strong support. If 539 fails, I might look for some put hedges like I've done over the last couple weeks just to protect positions. So that's the SPY. Another thing to note here is the small caps underperforming, down nearly 1.6% on Friday, and that was after I think it was 1.5% pullback on Thursday. So back to back, huge declines. On the flip side, I think it was up over 2% on Wednesday after the Fed statement and meeting. So take it with a grain of salt, but the IWM is pretty much at the lows from the start of May. So small caps don't find some footing this week. I don't know if I'm not saying that's going to be the catalyst for downside, but I will be a little more concerned. You look at the small caps right now. I think they're down 0.6 or down 0.5% now. As small cap futures down 0.5%. So it looks like we're starting off. It's like deja vu all over again. So it might be 3 straight sessions of downside on small caps. Definitely something I'll be watching. And then, of course, always watching the yields, right? So the big sign last couple of weeks was the huge move in TLT to the upside and yields going down. And this morning here we got yields are taking it on the chin. Also, I think the ECB has, not the ECB, the UK has their central bank meeting this week. I think it's Thursday, their decision. At some point, I thought there was expectation they were going to cut rates, but it looks like it's like a 40% probability they're not going to. So that's something also to be aware of. But yeah, you look at a move in TLT. It was $88 right before the start of June, all the way up to 95, and now today it looks like it's first red day since last Monday. All right, so that's the overall market. Some individual names. Great week. We'll have Apple, Adobe. I did OLED, Arista Networks. TERN has been doing well. But first, talk about Adobe. I was talking about all at the start of last week, looking to get some calls for some premium build into earnings. Finally got those calls. The stock really didn't do much before earnings, but I would say luckily, but was able to close some of my calls out for over 100% to cover costs the day of earnings, despite the stock trading flat. So, of course, in hindsight, I wish I held all of them. But when I have a binary event and I have the opportunity to ride free into it, or at least take some profits to cover costs, I tend to try and do that. It makes sense, right? Unless you're going all or nothing, which is usually a strategy that won't work very, very well over a long period of time. Eventually, those catch up and they'll come back to haunt you. Huge move to the upside. I thought 515, and then it was 530. I knew I was going to lock some in right at the open. I was able to get some out for almost $10, and then I just sold the rest earlier in the morning, and it just chopped around. A name I'll be watching, it is divisive, so there's a couple analysts who have bearish the name and even reiterated their underperform ratings. on Friday, despite the nice report and the beat and raise. So I don't know how much upside it does have, but if it can start filling the gap at like 540 and the 200-day moving average at 544, could be an opportunity for some upside. So I'll keep it on watch. Probably not going to add anything on that one. Universal Display closed the last of my 210s last week. I still have some 220s that I kind of held on to as you know, a FOMO. This way I can lock the 210s in without worrying that the stock was really going to take off. They have news here this morning. Oh, he's going to be ringing the NASDAQ bell today. so, uh, so Universal Display, their CEO is going to celebrate their 30th anniversary by ringing the closing bell, excuse me, at the NASDAQ markets today. I don't know if that's going to do anything with the stock, but interesting news nonetheless. If that starts to really take off today, maybe it gets 203, 204. I may look to add some July strikes. They're a little pricey, but I was saying that last week. I think we can get to 240, 245 in the coming weeks. And the other thing, you look, it was up 7 or 8 sessions in a row to start June, and then it had the huge move on Wednesday, and then green session on Thursday, and then Friday it was pretty much almost, I wouldn't call it flat. It was down 1%, but you would think there'd be more profit takers there where there wasn't. So I think that bodes well for more upside. So I'll continue to look for opportunities to uh, add some more strikes on Universal Display. Still have the 220s. Going to need a large move this week for those to come back to life. Oh, don't forget, I should have said start markets close Wednesday. So, I mean, you can be around Monday. Or you can trade on Wednesday, trade your cryptocurrencies, but markets will be closed. A TERN. So close the last of my TERN, June 750s for 300% on Friday. I didn't want to be in a situation where I'm holding the calls, and I mentioned this a couple times. It had a huge move 2 Fridays ago where it opened at $7, and it closed at under $6, and that's in one session. Not saying that's going to happen again, but I didn't want to have a repeat of that where positions that were solidly green all of a sudden turn into the red. Uh, Still have the July strikes, and I probably, depending if it holds gains today or tomorrow, I may start looking for further out strikes. They have data in the back half of 2024, their oral data. I think it's the same. Some of what they have in their study is similar to GPCR. So the concerns with TERN would be its adverse effects. That was the big reason GPCR didn't really go bonkers like it could have on its data because 62% of the folks of the cohort had vomiting issues, right? So there's still plenty of time, and you look at the stock. Seems like every morning someone's in there bidding. There's a huge block on the bid right now. Uh, I said over $8, blue sky breakout, maybe double digits is coming. And I've said this many times as well with TERN. All the analysts are in $15, $18. There's some over 20. That doesn't mean that that's where it's going to go, but certainly helps the bull case on TERN. So love TERN. Arista Networks, I added those spec calls on Thursday on the heels of Broadcom's earnings, and it just looked like it was just taking off, and there was a JP Morgan note on it as well, all the way up into the 330s. Closed some out, and then towards the end of the day, it closed more out for over 100% just to cover costs. Held a few into Friday, and sure enough, the stock just floundered around 328. And what's it doing this morning? It's gapping. It's up at 334.50 or so. If it breaks the all-time highs, I think it's 335. Let me see if I can pull up at least the recent highs. I think it trades up into 345, 350 range. So I might look for some strikes there if it breaks that. Thursday was 331.75. I'm trying to see if I can find the all-time high in the. Oh, I'm not gonna be able to do it that quick. So that's Arista Networks. Not gonna add too much more commentary on that. Uh, DELL, maybe. I hate to keep talking about DELL. If you look at the chart, it almost looks like it's consolidating. So that's a good sign if it starts to consolidate. Uh, the sell-off, and now it looks like the sellers are kind of gone. The buyers and sellers are consolidating, and eventually the buyers will start taking charge again. Not going to add anything just yet on DELL because it's been frustrating, but definitely on watch. HPQ was down. It was down almost 3% on Friday. No news, no catalyst. The market was weak at the start of the morning, so maybe that was some of it. And then buyers just never came in and pushed it back higher. But you still have a somewhat of a bull flag, so still like this one for upside. A line, just I think was down 6% on Friday. Again, no news, no catalyst to speak of, market weakness, and then no buyers came in. Keep talking about their share buyback, which ends in July. They have an accelerated stock buyback program. Well, I think there's two catalysts, and one would be that they re-up it, or number two, maybe that the buyback hasn't been officially accelerated yet, and maybe this is the week. One of these days, it's going to be a 5%, a 6%, a 5% in a matter of 3 sessions. and the stock is going to really take off. The unfortunate thing, it just couldn't reclaim the 200-day moving average. 200-day moving average 277. The 50 is 282. So those are key spots. We can find some buyers here, but it's down here 256. So going to need a big move there. I'm trying to think of some of the other things going on. Obviously, the GameStop saga. It's just it's funny. You read all this stuff over the weekend, and people talk about market manipulation. And it's like, I mean, I'm not going to be, I'm kind of impartial. I don't have a position in GameStop, but for someone to post their position and that be manipulation, I mean, I said this analogies as well as when all these funds come out with their 13F filings, and it's Warren Buffett has a 5% stake in Apple, and Apple goes up 4%. So Buffett just made 4% right overnight just by posting a position. Is that manipulation? And Warren Kitty, it's influential now. He posts a position, the stock goes up, and he's manipulating. I mean, when he's in a position, it's like it's comical. Do folks think he doesn't want to make money, right? I think anybody who's in a position wants the position to go up, right? So I'm sure he knows that posting his position is going to make the stock go up. Is that manipulation? Should he hide his position? Or, I mean, how many other people post their position for every day, right? So, what happens if the stock went down? That's not manipulation. That stuff, it just makes for great headlines and clickbait. And, some of these folks come out and say these things, especially when I see like a Citron research guy, and Andrew left, right? So you know, I'm not going to agree with him for a lot of things he's done. For example, when he went short GameStop and then that blew up in his face, said, I'm never going to short a stock again. I'm going to do long multi-bagger plays. And now he's back to shorting Garmin and what have you. But when he comes in, he tries to opt in on something like Roaring Kitty and GameStop. It's like he does the same thing. He posts these tweets. He's already short, right? His does it benefit if the stock goes up when he's short? No. Does he know that the stock might go down if he posts his short thesis? Heck yes. Is that manipulation? Gray areas. Anyway, rants for other days. I'll be back on audio later. Take a look at Broadcom. Is it still over $800 in the 1800 in the pre-market? That thing's a monster. I mean, not sure. I'll look for any spec calls yet, but if it holds here and it breaks, holds 1800 or so and really starts to go, that could be one of those names maybe because it has a post earnings smash up 1900 or so. So I'll be watching that one. I mean, it's already up quite a bit already, but different than Adobe because Adobe doesn't have the same, concerted belief in the stock, like the fundamentals, the growth, and all that stuff. There's people who don't believe that in Adobe right now, especially with the analysts. So I don't think that has as much potential as having an earnings smash up as Broadcom might. And when I say smash up, it's already gapped, but then it might have a multi-day, multi-week run. Um, yeah, Apple. I haven't. I said it on the watch list last week. I'm probably not gonna trade. I don't know how much meat is left on that bone. Right, the huge move after its WWDC all the way up to 220, came back down towards the end of the week. I'm probably not going to try and trade that one for another couple years. And I think that's it, folks. Let's have a great day. I'm going to be on the audio later. Rock and roll.